Welcome to Pacific Northwest wintertime. It is a typical day in the Pacific Northwest. It's been raining and we are coming out here with a break in the rain. Just kind of meh. And yeah, perfect day to start some seeds. So I'm Katarina from Sustainably Rooted. Welcome if you're just joining us. I am a zero waste mom. I talk everything from gardening, DIY, and sustainable living for your home, for your life. And my goal, my mission is to make zero waste living accessible and sustainable for you and your home. So today is a perfect day to start seeds, and we're going to talk about the whys. We're going to kind of drop through that a little bit. If you have questions at any point, just drop them in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you. Like and subscribe so we can reach more viewers and just bring just sustainable living to more people and realize that it is doable. So in our garden, it's too cold to start seeds, most seeds, and we're still in plenty of space for a frost. So tomorrow there could be a frost and then that would kill everything that we have. There are a couple different things you can do. Being in Zone 8B, greenhouses are definitely an option where we can grow things in there. We could do a hoop house where you have some kind of cover that's going over your garden and you can kind of start some seeds there. Some people do winter sowing, but that means that they're doing stuff outside. But my goal is to make stuff simple for you. If you wanted to start a garden right now, you're really excited for spring, we could get started. We're in January, and it's starting to rain again, like I just said. So let's get started. Let's get out of the rain. All right, so where do we even start? The two things that you need, and you might have to pause the video before you get started, is what seeds are you interested in starting? And when is your last frost date? So you might have to pause the video and do that research. I'll put in the description below what that some resources for last frost date and maybe a resource about some different spring crops. It's going to be specific to your area. So mine's Zone 8B. You need to pause the video to find out those things, jot those down. Please do that. Once you have those, now we have to talk timing. And I'm going to do my best to explain it. And I've done this before and I'm still like trying to wrap my mind around it. In one of my videos, in my August starting, I did also explain this, so you might have heard this. I'm going to try and keep it fairly short. On your seed packets, in here it says 70 days. So 70 days is about 10 weeks. And again, that's a long time, honestly. And if I was to direct sow these in the ground, by the time that 10 week would hit, it's already summertime. So that's why I'm starting these indoors, because I don't have enough time in Zone 8B to have a full process to before harvest. So I'm going to start them indoors. So we're looking at about, going off of these, about 11 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks. So I'm going to take my last frost date. For me, it's April 24th. So I want to go 12 weeks before that. And that's why here I am starting seeds. So there's that one. Onions, I'm going to mention as well. It says it takes 110 days, and that's probably the very first seed. If I got none of these seeds started, this is the one I at least want to try and get first started. I do not want to do it like 1 week at a time. This week I do this. This week I do this. I don't want to do that. Maybe twice, like onions and some of the other longer crops now. Broccolis, cauliflowers, those ones. And then maybe down the road I can do faster crops like lettuces, collards, or things that can maybe take just slightly more heat and they're going to be able to last. So my tomatoes and things like that, that's where I'm starting slightly later, but I still need a ton of time for them. So I hope that makes sense as we get started. So now that I have a general schedule of when what seeds I need to start when, for the most part, I'm going to get started. All right, so now you know what seeds you're going to start and you know when you're going to start. So the next thing you need to do is gather your supplies and then you can start your seeds. So you need a soil substance, whether that is a bag mix, it could be you're making your own mix, but you need some kind of soil. You need containers, we'll get into the containers a little bit. You need your seeds, you need a place to put them. So if you're doing a windowsill, that needs to be available and ready to go. If you're doing like a seed starting area, then maybe get that ready to go. If you're using grow lights, things like that. Definitely get your supplies ready. We're going to talk some different container options. The first thing is going to be seed cells, or I don't know, seed tray. There are things like this. There's so many different options. They sit in here. I'll explain that. And there is this dome tray that I have. So that's one of the things I'll be using today. You can always reuse the containers you already have. But this is just a 4-block. Okay, you can reuse all these containers. So grab your container. You do want to sanitize any containers that you're reusing. So sanitize means that your hope is to kill off all the germs, all the bacteria, any insects, and you're not bringing them into your house, and definitely not bringing them into the plants. So plants are very immature, so they're more susceptible to disease. So those are my different options. When it comes to these, the benefit is I can kind of squeeze and pop these out and have those like little tubes, and then I can transplant those straight to my garden, or I can kind of pot them up. So now that I have what I'm going to use for trays, I've sanitized them, they're ready to go. I'm gonna make my mix. I'm making my mix. You do not want to get soil from your yard and use it for seed starting indoors. You're trying to create an environment that's going to help that seed be successful. And the soil outside is not quite there yet. You want something loose, you want something that holds moisture, and just dirt from your yard isn't going to do that. Bringing it indoors, you now have opened your household to any insect or any disease that was outside. It will now be in your household. So you don't want to do that. You also do not want to find some kind of just regular old potting mix. This is my house pot mix. Again, the ratio that you need for starting your seeds is not there. So you want something that specifically says seed starting potting mix, seed starting mix, something like that. I honestly do not have something like that available to me. I don't know why, so I don't know what's up with that. So instead, I just consistently bought these things, and it is peat moss. Another option is peat moss is actually not as sustainable from my understanding as coco coir. I need perlite. I think it's vermiculite. So I have these 3 components that I'm going to use in mine. I've also heard that maybe using a little bit of lime will help with the pH levels, but I'm not going to worry about that. So you need some kind of scooping item for this, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So peat moss, my mixture is 4 parts to peat moss, and then 1 for each of the others. So 4-1-1 is what I use. I don't know, there's so many different mixtures out there that you know, in the comments, put what you put. Let me hear what you do, and I'm excited to hear. So I'm gonna do 4 scoops of this peat moss. Oops. And then I'm gonna do 1 scoop of each of those. Kind of see how much I have. I think I'm gonna have to like double that, if you will. So 8 to 2. And go from there. For those of you that don't feel comfortable with this concept of parts, what that means is that whatever you use as a container for one thing, use that same container, and you use 4 scoops of that container for 1 scoop here, 1 scoop here, but you're using equal container. So this is gonna be hopefully create a like light and fluffy for our seeds. So I'm mixing it with my hands. I'm gonna add water to this. So this is gonna be pre-soaked, if you will, and then we can put it in our seed trays. All right, so now my tray has all its soil in it. What I did is I also went ahead and just with 2 fingers just kind of like patted it down, because I don't want any like air pockets on the bottom. So if the soil or the potting mix didn't get all the way down there, I want to make sure it's down there. It doesn't have to be pretty, just tapping to make sure. And then I do want just a little bit of gap because I'm going to put some perlite on top of it, but so it doesn't need to go all the way to the top, but I don't want big gaps in there too much. So I think overall it's okay. I can see 2 that I need to add soil to, but we'll go from there. So I've got this tray that I'm gonna add seeds to. Got this 4-pack. I don't know what happened to my 6-packs. I don't understand. It drives me insane, but whatever. And then I've got 3 of these ones as well. You can go through with like the back of a Sharpie, or go through with a chopstick and kind of make a little dimple for each of them, or a little kind of valley for them to live in. All right, so here's what I've ended up planting. Put perlite on top of it and then water. All right, so I am sitting on the floor of my office, and this is where all the magic is, right here. And this is where my plants are gonna hopefully stay until germination, and then we'll move them out. So the reason I picked the office is a couple reasons. One, temperature control and consistency, that's a really big one. It's warm in here. You want for your plants to germinate, it does need to be warm. That's why people put like mats, heat mats down. I do not have heat mats. I do need to get a temperature gauge in here so I can kind of get an idea of what the temperature is, but usually it stays really around 70 degrees, and it is really warm in here. It's probably the warmest room in the house. Small room. The other reason, second reason, is traffic. This is not a spot in the house that people are moving through consistently, which a lot of people do maybe in their living rooms and stuff, so I don't have to necessarily see it, especially when I have guests. But at the same time, the kids aren't coming in, the cats aren't messing with stuff, like, it's here, I can close the door off, and nobody's gonna bother it. But that's why I picked the room. I have this, but I already had this in our house. I have no idea where it came from. Then I have my grow light, my spider grow light, which I'll show in a second, and I've got my trays just sitting here with the domes already on them, ready to go. There's 5 like lights here, and they flex, and in theory you can raise it as you need to. There is a dimmer option so that it can get as dim or as bright as you need it to be. There is a spectrum change, so I can change the color spectrums. It also has a timer, 3 hours, 9 hours, and 12 hours. And so it just changes the color based off of what, like this one's the 12-hour, the red is. So there you go. So what I'm gonna do is they're trays, so I can easily just carry them to and from the sink. I'm gonna water the tray itself in the water, so you can kind of see. I'll push this up real quick. So I'm gonna water in here. They'll absorb that water. I'll dump it out, bring them back in here, and there you go. I'm gonna keep them fairly moist and keep the light on them for 12 hours. And then until I see germination. Once they start germinating, then almost all of them, then I'm gonna move them out to the garage. It's a cooler temperature. There'll be different grow lights. They're full spectrum LED. LED is probably your best bet, much more sustainable. Full spectrum is what you really want in a grow light, from my understanding. So yeah, that's my setup, and I will do another video to check my Instagram so I can update it at Sustainably Rooted. And of course, like and subscribe. Thanks for starting seeds with me.